A clash of stranded foes! In the final episode of Ahsoka Season 1, the reunited rebels race the clock to stop Thrawn and escape Peridia. Devan and Peter will discuss the shit out of it! This episode contains spoilers for Ahsoka Season 1, Star Wars Rebels, Clone Wars, Thrawn Alliances by Timothy Zahn, and the Star Wars films! Hi, I'm Peter.
And I'm Devan, and this is I Am No Jedi, an Ahsoka podcast. Today we'll be discussing the Season 1 finale, Episode 8, The Jedi, the Witch, and the Warlord, which, by the way, is my favorite title of anything. I love it.
I'm seeing the dumbest comments about it. People are like, I don't see how it was anything like Narnia. And I'm just like...
No, literally, like, as soon as that title came up on the screen, Chris was like, oh, people are going to be mad about this.
They are, and it's dumb.
It works great. It's whimsical. I loved it.
Yeah. Like, nod to things you like. It's fine. The characters don't know the name of the episode. They don't care. That's for us.
Yeah. We're going to be splitting this episode up into two parts because we have a lot to discuss here, and it would be way too long to cover in one episode. So we're going to start out with part 1, and then we'll be back with part 2 soon.
It's your turn this week to do our one-sentence challenge of what happened in the episode.
All right, this is a tricky one. This is the best I've got.
Indeed.
Ahsoka and Sabine thought exile on Peridia seemed like so much fun, they thought they'd try it themselves.
Yeah, they just switched places.
Yeah, they were like, you know what, we'll take a turn. We'll tap out.
Yeah. Tag, you're it. You protect the galaxy for a little while. Your turn.
Yeah, that shit was exhausting. You know what, you go protect the galaxy / try to take over the galaxy, respectively.
Yeah.
And we'll just take a vacation with the rock people.
Yeah, overall impression of the episode. I thought, okay, we both had this is mixed.
It's been a roller coaster of emotions, you guys.
It has. Yeah. I guess we should preface this with saying there was so much good.
There was lots of
but
good.
We needed to marinate.
Yeah.
We needed to marinate because there was something that kind of mired it feeling good for us.
And if you've been listening to our podcast, you probably know what that is.
When Sabine got to use the Force, we were not happy.
We've been saying all season, we're just like, just don't do it. And then they did it. And the first time I watched it, I had a really hard time enjoying anything after that because I was just really mad.
It was hard. Yeah.
I didn't want to see it. I was really pulling for it to not happen, and then I was like, and they did it. Okay, all right.
It just all we had before this was Rebels. There was no it's fine to say a lot of stuff happened to them in the war, and we can catch you up on their drama. You know, this is 5 years later, but to be like, oh, by the way, someone who's a whole fleshed out character got powers, and therefore they can be a main character now they have powers. I'm like, they were a great main character without them.
Exactly. That's the thing, and that's what feels like a missed opportunity. Is like she doesn't like she's such a great character without it. We've talked about that all at length already, but it did prompt us to break our don't talk about it before the podcast rule, which we've been doing a really good job of that this whole season. We're like, we don't like talk about the episode before we record because we want to save it all for the podcast. But this one,
we did have to break that rule.
I needed some emotional support. I texted you because you watched it a little bit like an hour after it came out, and I watched it immediately.
Well, what's funny is the first text message you sent me was, let me know when you've watched. And somehow I had the sense I was going to send you a GIF, but I couldn't find a good one. But I wanted to find a GIF that just says, that could mean anything. Like, it wasn't an excited, let me know when you've watched. It was just a blanket. I had a bad feeling about it. Something was wrong in the Force.
I wasn't sure if you were watching it in real time or if you hadn't watched it yet. So I didn't want to like give anything away. So I was like, just let me know when you've watched it, and then I will rant about it a bit. So we did have to work through some emotions about it.
Yeah, we had to get that out of our system and then kind of sit with it, rewatch the episode, appreciate things without that bothering us. I gotta point this out, though. We like Sabine.
Yes.
We love Sabine.
Love her.
So if you're like, I don't want her to be a Jedi because I just don't like women, go fuck yourself. We just want the story to be dope, and this is just our opinion on story.
That's...
yes.
Agree. I was like, I don't want to get too negative with this, especially with this point, because I was like, I don't want to be like a dissenting voice that's like, I'm mad about like a strong woman in Star Wars. It's like, it's not that at all. I absolutely love her as a character, and I really love the show overall, but it's just it's the story. It's the story aspect, and we've been talking about it all season. Y'all know how we feel about
Mandalorian is a whole Star Wars show that's not about a Jedi, and it works.
It's great.
Why can't we have a story that isn't about a Jedi that works? They're like, oh, wait, this one's not a Jedi? Okay, she's a Jedi too. Just, it's like, everyone can go Super Saiyan now, you know? It's like, it was really cool with, okay, another Dragon Ball Z reference from Peter. Here we go. So much Star Wars is anime.
This one's for you, Lynette.
But like, we're like, oh, they really built up Super Saiyan. Only he can do it. He's a legendary one. Wait, now his son can do it? Now his rival can do it? Now his son can do it? Now the other son can do it? Wait, they realized they don't have any girls, so he had a granddaughter, and now she can do it too? Wait, everyone can do it?
We're just opening up a hardware store called Saiyans and Sons.
I like that. That's great.
Thank you.
Yeah. We should talk about how we felt about the episode after we got that out of our system, because that's worth saying.
Yeah.
I felt a lot better about it after I stopped being frustrated with that.
Me too.
Because then I could appreciate everything
else.
I
was able to calm down a bit about it.
Yeah.
And I was like, I was watching it with Chris and the episode ended and I was like, well, I'm pissed. And he was like, well, I loved it. And I was like, well, that's great. And he really liked it a lot, which was, he kind of talked me down off the ledge a little bit about it because I was like really mad. And then he was like, oh no, but it had this and it had that and it was really good. And I was like, okay, yeah, you're right. And he was like, there's some things that Star Wars just isn't going to do. And that's one of them. And I was like, yeah, but what if they did though? He talked me down a little bit about it. And I marinated on it. I watched it again. I justified some things in my head. I hypothesized about some things. I was like, all right, this can be salvaged and I'll get to that a little bit later on in the episode.
Yeah, I will too, because I did think that there were some potential justifications for it.
Yeah.
I'm frustrated that they don't exist now because that would make us receiving it better.
Yeah.
But it's good to know other people weren't bothered by it. I don't understand why no one's talking about it. On the internet.
I've not seen anyone with this complaint, I guess.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. I've seen a lot of people who just had completely positive reactions to the episode, which is great. I love that for them. I'm never going to be mad about people liking Star Wars. That's great. I've also seen people with like really dumbass responses and complaints that are just stupid, and I feel less good about that. But yeah, I don't know. I haven't seen a lot of this take. Other than that, I wanted to say in terms of how this works as a finale, I think that I have mixed feelings about that as well. It definitely had some really, really great stuff. It also had some stuff I wasn't as excited about, and I felt like it was not as climactic as I was expecting the finale to be. It didn't feel as much like a big climactic finale as it did maybe sort of like a mid-season finale. It's definitely more setup than it is climax. Yeah.
I think it's good in that if you don't take it as a standalone, it's a beautiful segment. The first Star Wars movie I ever saw was Empire Strikes Back. I don't know if I've talked about it here, but like I hadn't seen anything else before it. And everyone always says they love Empire. It's like the best one. And when I was sat down to see it with my Uncle Tim, who, I don't know, he had to babysit me, and I think I was 7. the screen starts scrolling. Star Wars, Episode 5. And I go, oh, do I need to have seen Episodes 1 through 4 to know what's going on? And he just goes, oh, you haven't seen Star Wars? And I just go, no. And he goes, oh, you don't have CD others. This is the best one. And he's right. He's so, as an adult, I was just like, I totally get that now. He's just like, no way. You only need this one. But like, even though that didn't stand alone, it also did. It's just, these are the heroes. They're always doing shit. And something bad happened, and you have a cliffhanger, but seeing that window of their lives was cool. I think that's kind of what this felt like at the end, this sort of cliffhanger. It wasn't as climactic as I would have wanted, I agree with you. But it had that, this is a window of a journey. It ends in a cliffhanger. They're kind of really fucked. But it gave me that type of Star Wars vibe.
Yeah, that's kind of one of the beautiful things about Star Wars storytelling is that the way it is structured is really so that you can kind of pop in at any point on the timeline, because it's never been about linear storytelling. It's been about like, you know, storytelling over the course of millennia. And you start kind of in the middle, and then you've got stories going back and stories going forward and stories going sideways and following different characters and different timelines and all these different things. So there are certainly obviously things that are going to make more sense if you've seen other stuff. Like, you know, watching the show, if you haven't watched Rebels, is a completely different and worse experience. Like if you've watched Rebels and you know that backstory, that's going to help you. But yeah, you're right. A lot of stuff is built so that you can kind of pop in at any moment in these characters' lives and get some good story. And it's going to be richer and more fulfilling and have more payoff if you know, the more backstory you know and the more about the characters that you know. But you can still get some good, you know, adventure and stuff no matter where you pop in.
Yeah. And this is the first time I'm having this thought. But what I'm so frustrated about with Sabine is not only is she a great character, I think, without the Force, because that's too many things. You know, it's like, look, Superman, you can't also heal from death just because and have super strength, flight. You can turn back time. You know, at a certain point, Superman has just too many things. You know, it's like she's a genius. She's a Mandalorian. She's an artist. Also, like, a Mandalorian leader, because she had the Darksaber for a little bit. And now she also can use the Force. It's too many things.
You get too many things, Larry. You get one thing.
In the Star Wars point we just made, I kind of got over my, hey, they skipped the part where we earned this. Because it's a big leap to go from totally normal person to, oh, by the way, they're Force sensitive. Like, that just is shitty when we earn everything else, especially with all of these characters. We've earned all of their character beats. We've seen it. It could be, that's a story we still have yet to see.
That's right.
There could be a whole really big, awesome story there, and I hope they do show it to us. If they don't, I'll be annoyed.
Yeah, because they could still go back and show what I need to see to fill in that gap is Sabine's time training with Ahsoka previously, because we still have no idea what that time looked like, other than that she was trying to train her. She wasn't having much success, but she was doing some stuff. We don't have any information about whether or not she was actually able to use the Force during that time. All we get is Huyang saying she is bad at the Force, but we never have seen her even be able to move anything a fraction of an inch. We have no indication of like if she was able to use the Force then or not, or like what level, you know, she was able to reach with Force aptitude or like anything like that. So without having any information about that time period, it's really hard for us to know what to expect in this time period.
Yeah. And they really teased that it was probably nothing because it was continually nothing. There was no evidence of it.
Exactly.
So
that's what it was.
That frustrated us a lot,
right?
Because it was like, it seemed like it was going to be just it's not the Force. It is just believe in yourself and be what it means to be a Jedi without the Force. Be a great Padawan to another, you know, Ronin of sorts. Well, let's start going through the episode.
Sounds good.
So Thrawn dispatches some TIE fighters. This is how the episode begins.
Yeah, I like that we start with Thrawn sort of acknowledging some past mistakes that he's made, which is another mark of a good leader, you know, that accountability aspect. Morgan Elsbeth is like, oh, it's not a big deal. Like, we shouldn't be that worried. And he says, even I fell victim to the heroics of a single Jedi. Never again. And you can see that, like, he's like, oh, this is the biggest mistake I ever made. Like, I won't underestimate a Jedi again. So it's kind of nice to have that acknowledgement.
I also like how after he dispatches them, this is a little bit ahead, but when they don't hear back from them, he's just like, assume they're dead. Give them a commendation. Mm-hmm. I'm like, smart and respectable. Yeah. Like, he gives a shit a little bit, you know? Like, I don't know. He's just such a good manager. I thought it was definitely, I was expecting Morgan Elsbeth's transformation into a proper Night Sister.
I was like, you know what? Good for her. She deserves this.
Yeah. I don't know why she wants it so much, but that is her twisted religion.
Yeah.
And she worked hard for it. And they said you will become hive mind.
She put in the hours, paid her dues, and she did it. Good job.
It also kind of meant we're not really going to get to learn much more about her, but I guess we don't really need to.
Yeah, this transformation scene I thought was done really well. It was really cool. They summon the Blade of Talzin, which was, I was like, oh, awesome. So Mother Talzin was the leader of the Night Sisters in Clone Wars, and this blade was summoned by Mother Talzin in season 6, episode 9, The Disappeared Part 2, when she duels Mace Windu. So it was cool to see.
Oh, really? Yeah. I forgot about that. My reaction was, really? They trying to make a new Darksaber on us? Like, that's what I was thinking. I was like,
no, this is an actual thing.
Okay.
This is an episode that a lot of people ignore because it's a Jar Jar episode. But this arc is weird. It's a 2-parter. It's a Jar Jar arc, but it's like weirdly good for a Jar Jar arc. Like the first episode is kind of weird. This is the one where Jar Jar's got a girlfriend, basically, and it's 11 kinds of uncomfortable. But you know what? Good for him. Get it, Jar Jar. So yeah, the first episode is kind of like Jar Jar antics, and it's like, what is going on? And then in the second episode, Mother Talzin shows up, and there's this whole like tie-in with the Night Sisters, and it was like, wait, this is actually really cool. Mace Windu is there, so yeah, that was a cool tie back to that.
I probably always skip that episode because it's a Jar Jar episode. Yeah. So yeah, I completely forgot about that.
You're not wrong to do so. Skipping the Jar Jar episodes is a perfectly acceptable approach. But there is some worthwhile Night Sisters lore in that one. This series as a whole, but this episode in particular, has so much good cinematography. There's so many shots that I'm just like, that is freaking beautiful. And like the shot where you have Thrawn and he's dispatching the TIE fighters, and the 2 TIE fighters dispatched like on either side of him. And it's just so good. It's just so good. It's so well done.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. All right. So we've got Morgan Elsbeth. She gets her Night Sisters 2.0 update, which apparently also unlocks the Demon Echo voice feature. So that's cool. And then we cut to Ezra building his new lightsaber, which was awesome to see. I loved that.
Oh yeah. The fact that he was doing it like such a haphazard 90s kid in like a garage felt very Ezra. It felt very his scavenger, like fast-paced.
Yeah, he's just like rummaging around through drawers. I also love, I don't know if this was established previously, but that this was Hu Yang's ship. So he's still got all like lightsaber parts and everything, which is great and makes this much easier.
I was going to say, it's funny that you point that out. I hadn't thought of this until just now, but like Ezra, for all of the growth he's had as a character, he gets told, oh, by the way, I have a whole room back here full of like lightsaber parts if you want to like fucking go nuts and like, you know, have a day at like the gift shop at the Lego museum or whatever, you know, and he's just like, oh, perfect. I need one right now. That would be so dope. Yeah, I'm gonna fucking build a lightsaber. Like, okay, I want this piece, I want that piece. And the dude's like, you might want to do it like this. Shut up. You don't know anything. Yeah. Person who has this custom, all these lightsaber parts just chilling around like an expert. Like, and he's like, no, really, I know what I'm talking about. No. I want it like that. It's like, dude.
Yeah.
I thought it was the funniest thing in the world, but now it's even funnier because it's just such a fucking doofus sometimes.
He really is.
So great.
He really is. But we have this really lovely moment where Huyang's like, who taught you to build a lightsaber? And Sabine comes in and she's like, Kanan Jarrus. And he's like, oh, I know that dude. And so they have this really lovely moment where Huyang, reveals that he had taught Kanan to build his lightsaber, and he's like, oh yeah, I knew him. And so then he gives him the piece, like the hilt piece, that's the matching set to the one that Kanan had, which was so great. I really love that detail that they added in there. And this kind of continues a tradition of apprentices modeling their lightsabers after their master's lightsabers. Like Luke's second saber is modeled after Obi-Wan's. Obi-Wan's first saber was modeled after Qui-Gon. So this is a tradition. So it's really nice to see that come back and have Ezra be building a lightsaber and have this piece that is kind of, the twin set from Kanan's.
Yeah, that was a really nice touch. And also that he decided to go with blue, his original color, and Kanan's color. And also, they're still always so unclear about this, whether lightsaber colors are a choice or
it depends on who you ask.
By you. Yeah, it really depends on who you ask. Especially because the Mace Windu one threw everybody for the
right.
But that one works too because it's always suggested that Mace Windu is kind of a balanced Force user. Yeah. And that's why his bled like blue hinting towards red, which is purple, because he was able to kind of master his own dark side, but that wasn't a good influence and I guess work colleague to be around Anakin.
Right. Yeah, he uses a combat style called Vapad, which is kind of like channeling the power of the dark side, but not like totally, but it's kind of like using it and kind of going like right up to the edge. And so that's
Yeah, I think his problem is he's almost dark side because he really does believe in the ends justify the means sort of vibe, and that's what is kind of a double standard that like pushes everybody around him to actually just be like dark side. But blue lightsabers usually are warrior, and green are usually people who are more in touch with the Force. And I always wondered why Ezra got green, and I was like, I guess he's kind of in touch with the Force with how he can talk to animals. But it's interesting that he's kind of back to blue now. I feel like once you're kind of a little bit more zen, you don't get less zen. So I wondered if it was just like a kyber crystal that was chilled around and he decided, I want this because it's meaningful to me. I want it to be blue because Kanan. Or if it was, his vibe has changed a little bit. But he does seem pretty zen. I mean, he's been chilling on his own for a long time with just rock people. And somehow he's kept his cheerful self despite being alone. And America couldn't even handle that for a year in 2020. Everyone started being really down in the dumps. And Ezra's just like, I got rock friends. I'm good. I'm so good. They don't even speak my language. I'm fine. Like,
yeah. I think those are all really good, like, hypotheses and things to think about in universe. I think not to be this guy, but a lot of, different types of meaning and weight has been given to the lightsaber colors, as you just said, over the years. But really the choices usually come down to more just production and what's gonna look good, or what Samuel L. Jackson wants. And that's in this case, Sabine has Ezra's old green saber, so it makes sense that they're gonna want it to look distinct and to have the different colors when they're fighting on screen. They have Ahsoka with white, Sabine with green, Ezra with blue. It just makes sense.
I feel like that was the deciding factor. It's nice that it's blue because of Kanan.
Yeah.
It really is. Like, honestly, green would have been boring for Ezra to just go green again. It really would have been boring. But I bet that was 90% of the
I think, and that's usually the way those decisions get made. Like, I'm pretty sure in Return of the Jedi, when Luke has his green saber, that was because the blue sky wouldn't show up against the blue sky, so they made it green. And then retroactively, people kind of retconned like, oh, the green means this and the blue means that, and it's really just a production detail that's like, this is what's going to look good on camera. Yeah. So that's my less lore sensitive. That's not a thing.
But it's accurate. Yeah. Like, if you want to be like, here's the truth, it's fun to interpret it in different ways. And I think once they settled on blue, and you talk about Kanan in that scene, and you've got the hilt, it's really quite perfect. The minute it was ignited, that was very satisfying. But that was definitely a huge part of it. They were like, they can't have the same color lightsaber. That's just boring.
Yeah, and if there's, in a fight scene, it's clear. If they have sabers that look similar, it can be more confusing, especially if they're switching them back and forth and they're dropping sabers and picking them up. It's like, oh, did she end up with his? You know what I mean? It just makes it a lot clearer.
Yeah. It was also not in the same scene. We also get some context about Ahsoka and Sabine's history and the Mandalorian. Finally. Purge. Yeah, and I'm okay that it was kind of glossed over and just given in exposition. I think Hu Yang, David Tennant, lends his voice so well to this character and being gentle in good moments, comedic in good moments, and just very genuinely a old silly robot in other moments. I was so good with this because then we're experiencing the catch up through Ezra's point of view. Yeah. As an audience, we're also catching up on it too. So I kind of like this better than a flashback. Yeah. I kind of like being told because Ezra's being told and we're being told. Like, we did miss this. We missed it. So it just ties everything together. And also that he said Ahsoka was worried she'd go dark side. Yeah. Makes a lot of sense given Anakin, but also totally really makes a lot of sense given Sabine. Yeah. Like, I
can see all of it.
Yeah.
Oh, totally makes sense.
Sabine would honestly, maybe she should have just let her go dark side and just like, I out dark sided the dark side, just wrecked the Empire. Like,
yeah, honestly,
it's worth an experiment.
She could have done some real damage to the Empire, which
she would have been great. So efficient.
She would have been great.
Yeah. She made a machine that literally was supposed to destroy Mandalorian armor, but then she figured out how to make it target Stormtrooper armor. She could have, like, just with her intellect and force abilities and ruthless skills, just literally decimated the Empire in a day. Yeah. And fucking Sheev Palpatine would have been like, what the fuck is this? It would have been great.
He would be, like, sitting in his throne room, and, like, a super Star Destroyer that's just, like, graffitied all rainbow colors just, like, comes crashing down into Coruscant. And he'd be like, damn you, Sabine. Yeah, I was just thinking, what if this is total tangent, but I agree. I think that, like, catching us up through Ezra catching up makes total sense, rather than a flashback. I had a flashback to me wanting a flashback during The Mandalorian when Bo-Katan is talking about the Mandalorian purge, and I was like, I really wanted to see that. I was like, they should do flashbacks of this. And then I was thinking about
in Mandalorian, they just should have.
I agree.
The context is different there.
Yes,
it's not we missed this character. These are
no, I totally agree, and I have thoughts about that too. There was a lot of filler content in the last season of The Mandalorian that I think is time that could have been much better spent doing flashbacks to the Purge of Mandalore. But what I was just thinking is, knowing that Dave Filoni is going to have some mysterious movie project that he's working on that's going to allegedly somehow tie together stuff from Ahsoka and Mando and some other stuff. I was like, I wonder if they'll do it in that. Probably not, but I was like, this is kind of it's in the middle of the Venn diagram between Ahsoka and The Mandalorian, is this through line of the Mandalorian purge history that's not been delved into, and I wonder if they're saving it for maybe in the next season of Mando, or maybe for this movie project.
That's possible.
I hope so.
Everything always converges on Mandalore. Yeah. Like, end of Clone Wars filled in the blanks as to a lot of things with the siege of Mandalore.
Right. So like having so much of that held back in The Mandalorian, which at the time I was thinking was a missed opportunity, but then having it kind of like lightly dropped here but not really delved into makes it feel more like they're leaving breadcrumbs and building to something more with that, which I really, really hope that they are.
Yeah. That would be really cool. That's a really cool theory. A thought that I had in between these scenes, especially in this next one with Sabine and Ahsoka when they're talking to each other on the ship, is an immediate change in pacing, I thought, from the previous 2 episodes, because every single scene we've seen so far, between Morgan's transformation, Thrawn learning from his mistakes, Ezra making Kanan's lightsaber and learning, and us learning through him and Huyang about what happened to Sabine, and now this scene with Sabine and Ahsoka kind of coming to terms with their strained relationship. Every single scene we've seen so far in this episode is an impactful character beat. And that felt much better than just, and we're going through the motions, which was basically the last 2 episodes for me. Because I was like, they were good. They had a lot of good in them, but it was also like, we have to watch the things happen. And the character beats are what you really are watching for.
Yeah, no, that's a really nice observation. Yeah, this scene that we have with Sabine and Ahsoka on the wing of the ship here is really great. I think that this adds a lot, and we get some nice moments. We have Ahsoka talking about Anakin, and I absolutely love the dialogue here. Do you hear Andy?
I like Andy's dialogue right there.
I was going to ask if you can hear that. We've dog yawning.
All season, he hasn't weighed in. He's been here.
He's finally letting his dog opinions
He's been known. A participating member as the pod dog of the podcast. Finally, he wants us to know. What can you translate for us? I don't speak Chewbacca or
What's
Andy.
Actually? Yeah, he was really moved by Ahsoka's dialogue about Anakin in this scene. He found it to be subtle and touching. But isn't that right, buddy? Yes.
He's like,
yes, you appreciate the subtlety. Yes, you do. Subtlety is like the last trait that you would attribute to Andy. Anyway, so she says, over the years, I've made my share of difficult choices. Often no one understood my reasons except my master. He always stood by me, even when no one else did. And this is 100% talking about her when she left the Jedi Order after her trial in season 5.
Yeah.
And it's one of those, like, it's broad enough that people who didn't watch Clone Wars will still get something out of that. But if you watched Clone Wars, This is such an impactful reference for her to make. Because that was just like one of the biggest emotional beats in Clone Wars, one of the biggest plot points. It's so crucial to her character. It's so crucial to his character. It's so crucial to their relationship. And their relationship is so crucial to Star Wars. It's like one of, if not the most crucial relationship in Star Wars, I would argue.
Yeah. It's lovely because it's one thing to just say, oh, this person who was like an older sibling, guardian character, or mentor, mentee. Mm-hmm. It's one thing to say they always have your back. They're always there for you. It's another for it to actually have come to fruition.
Right.
Like, people say that all the time, but they're saying it and they mean it, but the events don't happen. When the events happen where they need to be there for you, it's more impactful.
Yeah, it's often like a hypothetical, like, oh, I'll always stand by you.
So it's cool that she was conflicted about him for so long, and she can harken back to that reality. It's like, that is who he really was to her, and she can be very peaceful about it now.
Yeah, Rosario Dawson's performance here is also so lovely. Like when she's, she takes these like really long, like poignant pauses, and when she says he always stood by me, she injects so much emotion into that line, and you can see it in her face, you can hear it in her voice. all of what she's remembering, and there's so much gravity there, and it's just beautifully written, it's beautifully acted, and I love that moment.
Yeah. Love that.
There's also a really nice nod to Yoda's teaching here when Ahsoka asks Sabine if she's been training, and she's like, I try, and then she's like, she catches herself and she's like, I do. So without directly quoting Yoda or mentioning Yoda, we're told that that Ahsoka has been passing along Yoda's teaching to Sabine through the do or do not, there is no try, classic Yoda line. So it's...
Oh, I didn't even get that.
Oh, you didn't?
I just thought she meant I really do try.
Yeah, no, I totally got as like, you know, she said I try, and then I saw like her wheels turning and hearing Ahsoka say like do or do not, there is no try.
I didn't get that at all. Yeah,
totally.
I just thought she was being trying to walk the line between being sincerely sheepish. Like that's how I...
No, I think her facial expression there, like she gets this, it's like kind of a smile, but she's like, it looks like she's like catching herself, like she knows that Ahsoka is about to correct her, and she corrects herself. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that was a nice little, again, like subtle nod there without being like too overly explicit, but just injecting those things.
Yeah.
So then the TIE fighters attack. I was wondering why they're still traveling with the hermit crab people at this point, other than they're Ezra's buddies, but like why?
Yeah, that was... Yeah.
Okay, right?
I thought this, and I wrote this down before we cut to Ezra with the lightsaber, you know, we had an establishing shot of the ship hovering over the turtle people. And I was like, wait, we got the ship. It's working.
Yeah.
Why are you keeping pace with them?
Yeah, that was my question.
You have no reason to. And if you're a target, just get away from them. What support are they adding to the...
Yeah, he's just putting a target on their back and putting them in danger, which is exactly what happens.
I was like, maybe they're chilling because they need to regroup for a second, fix the ship a little bit, but I'm like, no, the ship seems fine until the TIE fighters shot at it, and I'm just like, that maybe just hide it under some fucking bushes, Marty McFly style, if you actually need to like be like, hey, we all need to, you know, take a vitamin water and you know, get ready before our next bout. Fine. Eat a sandwich, even though you have no time to waste. But like,
the only thing I can think of is that Ezra just couldn't part with them because he loves them.
I guess, yeah.
But
and then
that's
they end up
dumb.
With them anyways, it's very
dumb.
Yeah.
Okay, I wasn't sure if you had like a good reason that I was not seeing, but there didn't seem to be any reason for this.
I was trying not to nitpick, but now the more I think about it, that was very much set up because they just wanted to apparently take the ship out of the equation until the last minute when it's just back because convenience. Apparently that is the strategy with the last 2 episodes is, oh, we can't use the ship. Don't worry, the ship will rescue you. Both times. Like...
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, our ship's gonna be out of commission until the last possible second when it can dramatically save us.
It also didn't have to be. It didn't have to be, but it is. Mm-hmm. Like, if they just have the ship, all they have to do is fly up there, shoot down the TIE fight. I don't know. Maybe it was more fun than being like, well, you know, they'll be distracted by TIE fighters. It's kind of hard to make it interesting. What are they going to do? Drop 2 of them off and have Hu Yang just keep flying the ship around for a little while? Like,
right.
That's kind of boring too. However, I did notice this as a direct result of it. Thrawn says, assuming their ship is damaged enough, we should anticipate a ground assault. And then he fully jumps on that assumption. And I'm just like, but you don't know. What do you mean, assuming? Aren't there still 2 possible outcomes here? Like, granted, he was right because the plot, but I was just like, very unlike you to just assume...
He's always right.
Yeah, but it was 100% a guess. Like, the ship could have been fine, and he probably should have been like, let's also be prepared just in case their ship is fine. Like,
right.
All we know is we lost contact with the TIE fighters after they started shooting at them. For all we know, like, the TIE fighters just scored no points. But they did. But I was a little like, that was a nitpick for me, because I was just like, dude, it sounds smart on paper, but it isn't, because it's an assumption.
Mm-hmm.
Enough for Peter.
Yeah.
But yeah.
This did then give us probably my favorite moment of this episode, and probably one of my favorite moments in the season, which is just Thrawn when they're like, all right, so they're racing to the Chimera, so the ship is down, they get the Howlers and they're riding the Howlers toward them, and Thrawn gets the report like, all right, they're incoming, and he goes, good, rain hellfire upon them, just in his like calm, cool, collect Thrawn voice. And it was the most chilling thing, like that line, just like his very relaxed, like, rain hellfire, like the line, the performance, it like I got goosebumps all over my body, and I was like, oh, that was so good.
It really reminded me of season 3 when he's just bombarding the hell out of the Rebel base on the Bendu's planet. Yeah. Like,
yeah. It was very, so it was like, it was an absolutely perfect Thrawn moment, and it was flawless.
I love it. I love his justification. He's just like, the apprentice of Anakin Skywalker will get no warning.
Yeah.
We take them out.
Yeah. What did he say? It was also, like, there will be no negotiating with the apprentice of Anakin Skywalker. I think that was it.
That's what he said, which is kind of a callback to really knowing his history, because Obi-Wan was the negotiator.
Yeah, exactly.
In Clone Wars, and Anakin was the one who was just like, I don't give a shit, I will cheat. Like, he literally, his last battle in the Clone Wars, he pretended to negotiate, to say, I surrender, when he was really just being like, look at me, we're sneak attacking you. He was kind of a dick, in a way.
Oh yeah, total dick move.
If Thrawn knows his history, he's like, you don't negotiate with that person. That person's been trained by someone who literally just cheats and doesn't care. So,
yeah, if you let them get a foot in the door, they will just wreck shit.
Yeah. I also liked Hu Yang had one of the funniest jokes, I think, of the episode here. Just the comedic delivery was perfectly timed. I laughed out loud when she says, I believe in you. You'll get the ship up and running again. And right then the rock people are hanging out with him. Very Jim Henson moment. And they start like wrecking things on the ship and sparking stuff. And he just goes, do not wait for me. I'm missing a beat. It's like, this shit is doomed. I die.
It's gonna go bad.
Yeah. During that bombardment too, this was the first of the teases that frustrated us during this episode. Is she's like, Ezra, get the door. As with the Force, open up the doors. We're racing towards it, and lasers are hitting us. And she goes, Sabine, help out. And Sabine like holds out her hand, and I'm just like, Sabine can't help out. Nice of her to try again.
Yeah, this made me laugh, and I was like, it's sweet that Ahsoka wants to make her feel like she's helping, but I was like, it's like when you're trying to like help move a couch, and like other people are carrying it, and you just kind of like put your hands on it so you can feel like you're helping, but you're not really carrying any weight.
You're not doing anything. Yeah.
And you're like, I totally helped with that because, the couch got moved.
I was almost a little confused. I was like, doesn't Ahsoka realize at this point that Sabine can't use the Force? She's just teaching her to be dope, Like,
yeah. Or it's like when you're playing, like, I know people with little kids who want to play like Mario Kart with them, and they'll just give them a controller that's like not plugged in, so they can like pretend that they're playing, and they just like don't know the difference. It's like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so then we have this initial lightsaber battle with Ahsoka, Ezra, Sabine, and this group of stormtroopers, which is so awesome. I loved this scene. The fight choreography is great. Ezra is awesome. There's so much to like about this scene, I felt like.
He's so comfortable and OP.
Yeah.
Like, he's just flying around.
Mm-hmm. He's got so many good moves in there.
Jumping off of two things. One, our whole more little breadcrumbs of whether or not Sabine can use the Force. That's teased again in here. And also a theory that I had last week when we were wondering why wasn't Sabine starting with the lightsaber, and I was like, it's probably because it's harder to deflect if you're not a Jedi. She fails to deflect. Ahsoka picks up on it and says, you switch to long range attacks while we deflect, which was great.
Yeah, that made a ton of sense.
To me, it made sense, and it reinforced our theory to us. Yeah. So it was even more frustrating when it was like, no, she can use the Force.
Right.
But that was another breadcrumb that was frustrating because it made sense. That had legs.
Yeah, it was also a nice moment, and I thought of exactly what you said in that moment. I was like, oh, that's what Peter was just saying in the last episode. It's also a nice moment of showing Ahsoka being in tune with Sabine during this fight, kind of like in back in I think it was in episode 3, when they're flying together and Ahsoka's flying and Sabine is shooting, and they're kind of like trying to meld their styles. So Ahsoka's trying to, at first their styles are kind of clashing and what they each need. And then Ahsoka kind of adapts more to like what Sabine needs and is more in like a supportive role for her. And so I think we're seeing that again here, is her being in tune with Sabine and how she's doing and what she needs, and being like, all right, let me try and like manage her. Like she's being a good manager here, being like, switch to this other tactic.
Because she's also like recognizing you do need to do what you're good at in this scenario.
Right. Let's play to your strengths.
You are going to be thrown into the deep end, but like, why force you to suck in a death situation?
Right. Like this is not the place to experiment and like, and like, this isn't like a learning opportunity. This is a life or death situation.
Exactly. Let's learn what works for you so that you can gain confidence and be better at that, and then experiment.
Yeah.
Like, okay, amidst all this excellent choreography, excellent teamwork, very fluid, awesome visuals, then the stormtroopers become zombies. And earlier they kind of alluded, when Thrawn was making, plans to thwart them, he was told by Morgan Elsbeth, all of them volunteered. And I was like, oh, they knew this was going to happen to them. That makes it so much more disturbing for me. And it also was a nice moment for Thrawn, because you could tell he was like not super down.
He wasn't jazzed about it.
Okay.
He was like, are they sure?
He's not jazzed.
Yeah.
He's like, it's pretty fucked, and they're my men.
Yeah,
like,
he doesn't love it.
It's not great.
He doesn't love it.
Yeah. Okay, but once they're zombies, I had a nitpick.
Yeah.
Because we had a lot of lightsaber slashes that killed them, so they could be reanimated as zombies. All of these slashes were very clean. When lightsabers can just cut through people. It was just, a scratch here, a scratch there. And I'm like, sure, Stormtrooper armor isn't Beskar.
Right.
We should see limbs flying through the air. We should see Stormtroopers' heads rolling.
Yeah. As soon as they were reanimating, I was like, all right, they're going to have to switch to like a beheading tactic now, which is, decapitation, bisection.
Or just, even if you just take out their legs, they can't run after you and do anything.
These are tactics that have all proven very effective in zombie-related scenarios across media, so it would be a go-to.
So first of all, the fact that they're reanimated, I was like, if we just dismembered them in the first place, which is what they did, we didn't apparently have the budget for it. Instead, it was like all just clean light kill taps. I was like, oh, so you very precisely and lightly killed everyone. I specifically wanted to kill people with a lightsaber while they were all shooting at me, but I wanted them to stay completely intact. I'm so respectful to all these Empire fascist soldiers on a galaxy where they'll never receive a burial. I was like, so the fact that they're zombies realistically shouldn't even matter. They should just already be in pieces. They're like, I'm a zombie, but I guess I'm, a head over here, and my legs are missing. And so that was stupid.
Not much I can do about
once
that.
they're zombies, let's just dismember if you weren't already dismembering. Just do it now.
Would have been a solid tactic from the beginning, even more solid tactic once they're zombified. So yeah, I was like, oh, they should just start beheading them now, and then they continued to not do that.
They just didn't. They just did not.
Yeah.
I get that it's 4 kids, but kids are going to be like, 1 + 1 does equal 2. We've seen what lightsabers can do. We saw what it did to Darth Maul.
I feel like a 5-year-old is still going to be like, why don't they just lightsaber their head off? Like, they get it.
They are!
Right?
Yeah.
Little kids
5-year-olds
like,
are smart.
Tap.
Like, yeah. Not double tapping is very frustrating.
Yeah, totally. I did want to point out, because this is another thing that I was like, I could see people, some Star Wars fans who are not, don't know a lot of other media being mad about, I've heard of people being like, oh, now they're bringing witches into it, and that's not Star Wars. Like, yes, it is if you know Star Wars.
I saw that comment somewhere, and I'm like, that's just dumb.
Yeah. Yes, it is if you know Star Wars. And then I was like, those same people are going to be like, oh, now they've got zombies in it. This is bringing all these other things. Yes, it's also Star Wars. There's a couple of novels that I have not read yet, but I believe Red Harvest and Death Troopers are both novels that involve zombie stormtroopers. I added them both to my queue for my Libby app, which is my audiobook app. I'm in the waitlist for both of them. I added them directly after this episode. I've kind of been avoiding them because they sound scary, and I'm like, I don't know if I really want to do that. But I was like, it's Halloween time, it's spooky season. Maybe this is a good time to read some zombie stormtrooper flicks. But so those are out there, and those came out a while ago. I don't know exactly what year, but they've been out for a while. I think there's also some storylines like that in some of the comics. So there is a tradition of zombie stormtroopers. This is not out of left field.
Yeah. The idea of horror in Star Wars is always a little bit fun. Mm-hmm. And we've had Night Sister zombification and Rebels and stuff before. Correct. Too. Like, yeah. It was fun though. I mean, I like that we got hijinks. Mm-hmm. We got that funny Ezra moment.
Yeah, when he gets grabbed and he's like, Sabine, and she goes to like shoot and he's like, careful.
I feel like that is literally ripped from another episode of Rebels. Yeah. I feel like that exact moment has happened with him and probably Sabine before. Mm-hmm. So what a great callback. How very authentic. Like, that actor has really watched the show. Yeah. It's
definitely... I like to imagine that the whole cast, that like Dave Filoni just invited the whole cast over to his house to like have Rebels movie nights, like every night. And that they all just watch it together, because you can tell everybody has like really immersed themselves in it. It's great.
Definitely, yeah. Especially our three leads, Ahsoka, Sabine, and Ezra. Yeah, 100%. Totally.
Thrawn didn't need to do that because he was already him.
Yes, is the same actor.
Andy agrees.
Andy absolutely agrees.
Andy's like, yeah, Lars Mikkelsen. I love Lars Mikkelsen.
I was gonna say, it's funny that he like shows concern towards his men, when he's supposed to be evil, and then the minute he's like, oh, I need to sacrifice one of the witches, he's like, Morgan.
Yeah.
Like, no qualms. Yeah. No qualms at all. He's like, I would like to use subtext, but I am asking you, please go die for us now. Like, just to her face.
Yeah. And she's just like,
yeah.
Oh, I guess that is what I signed up for, isn't it? Damn it.
Yeah. You were a big fan of this fight.
I thought this fight was great. Yeah. Ahsoka versus Morgan Elsbeth. I thought this was another one of my absolute favorite. I think this was probably my favorite duel of the whole season in terms of choreography and execution. It's so strong. I wanted to talk a little bit about Diana Lee Inosanto, who plays Morgan Elsbeth. She is an extremely accomplished martial artist and goddaughter of Bruce Lee, which is a cool fun fact about her, but she's been a stunt...
I did not know that. That's so cool.
I learned that first when she first appeared in The Mandalorian in her episode with Ahsoka, because her duel with Ahsoka in that was awesome. Again, for this reason, like, she's an excellent duelist, and she's been a stunt performer and fight choreographer in a number of productions for a really long time. So she has a long history of doing this sort of thing, and so I think seeing her in these types of scenes is really, really thrilling because she's so good at it. The choreography is just stellar. Her execution, like the moves she's able to pull off, are just so good. And there's just something about the sound of a lightsaber on Beskar or whatever this is made out, in their fight in The Mandalorian, she's got the Beskar spear. And then in this one, whatever the Blade of Talzin is made of, magic, Night Sister's magic or whatever. But it's just so satisfying, that sound of like, it's very different from when lightsabers are dueling each other versus when one of them is like a metallic thing. It's got this like clanking, like everything feels much more heavy. It's got so much more weight behind it. And there's that sound is just so satisfying. So there's just so much to love in this scene.
It's cool, the temple set pieces they got for it too. It feels very boss fight, I guess. Or like what's that game, Soul Calibur?
Yes, I love Soul Calibur.
Both locations feel very Soul Calibur, which is cool.
I love that.
Yeah,
that's great. I also wanted to say I love how she completely ignores Ezra and Sabine when they come in. They just like walk right around her, and she just lets them go because she's correctly identified that Ahsoka is the greatest threat, and she's like, oh, these other, whatever. And Ahsoka's like, go stop Thrawn.
Well, she's also accepted, like, Ahsoka's kind of okay with, fine, you can slow one of us down. It will be me.
Right.
If you go up against all three of us, you will just die, but we don't want to take that slowdown. Right. So she's just like, fine, I'll do it one at a time. I don't know how she's rationalizing it.
Yeah, I guess she's like...
but she's like, I won't slow them down enough if I do it that way.
Right. I guess she's like trusting that the night troopers will be able to stop Sabine and Ezra, but not Ahsoka. Like I said, she's correctly identified Ahsoka as the greatest threat. Okay,
again, the zombies were given too much credit.
Agree.
Once we're on the roof with the zombie death troopers, I want to point something out. We're now on a roof with someone who previously said, the Force is now my weapon. The Force is your weapon, my ass, if you're not just gonna toss the zombies off the roof and then just get on Thrawn's ship. Instead, they're like, oh no, we have to fight them. I'm like, look, you're not even scrawny kids. You have no excuse. You're in your 20s. You know better. You know what resources you have. Just be efficient with your time. Like, it's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. No excuse. Be fired on the spot as Jedi.
Yeah, no, it's true. They're struggling with this way more than they really feel like they should be.
There's no need. All he has to do is quick force push. Okay, let's jump on the ship. It's not that far now. We can both make it. You can get on my back and never use the Force.
We can just take a casual stroll over to the ship.
No need for Sabine to ever use the Force. There's also no need for it, which also is just insult to injury over our frustration.
Yeah, it's not a big enough moment to really require it. Yeah. And we've talked a lot about in the beginning about how we felt about Sabine using the Force in the scene, so we don't need to completely rehash that, but I was disappointed to see that here. At first I was thinking what I was pulling for and what I really would have liked when you first see the lightsaber move and go to her hand, I was hoping the next shot would be showing Ezra had Force pushed it to her hand.
Oh, that would have been great.
Right? I would have liked that a lot.
That would have been, that would have been fantastic.
Yeah, I would have loved that.
Not because it's like, oh, let's give the man something to do. But just like, she doesn't have Force powers. They are doing teamwork. Like,
yeah, exactly.
She's a dope Mandalorian. I expected them to get past and find a way together as a team, because the message was stick together, and maybe it would just apply to the two of them, that the two of them would make it onto the ship and figure out a way to stop Thrawn. Yeah. Because it was always Ezra v. Thrawn. Yeah. And now Sabine is part of this legacy too. So that's what I was expecting, and I was figuring she would be the genius who would like wreck the Eye of Sion or something, using her intellect that she displayed during the Mandalore saga. So yeah,
I think after sitting with it for a little bit of time, like we talked about, like after marinating on it, rationalizing some things, I've calmed down on it a little bit, and I've realized that it could still be, I'm not saying that it is, but it could still be what I initially said back in the beginning of our podcast would be my second choice scenario, which is that she really does have no more Force sensitivity than anyone else, And it really is just that literally anyone can access the Force through enough, training and meditation, and all of that. That could still be good as long as they explain it well in the next season. I'm not saying that that's what they're doing. That's where I hope it is going. But that idea that it's not that she's a special star child. It's that Ahsoka's teaching is so good that she was able to take someone who has no particular Force aptitude and actually teach them to commune with the Force.
It's a stretch because it's like there's not a lot of precedent for it in the universe.
I don't think there's any precedent for it in the universe, which is why it would be really, really interesting and could be a really good story. It would be very interesting.
But it needs to be pointed out that that's what it is. It needs to be pointed out that she was a normie, and like there is that level of level up to it.
Exactly.
And that needs to be shown.
It needs to be explicit.
The other idea I had kicking around was this is Peridia. It's a strange part of the galaxy where the Dathomir witches are from, and now, we'll talk about it later. Mm-hmm. But we know the Mortis gods have a connection to it too. So this could be a place that's so powerful in the Force that even someone like Sabine could use the Force there.
Interesting.
So that's a theory.
That's a possibility I'd not considered.
But I feel like they can't do it now because they'd be letting a lot of people down. But I've seen this done in media before where someone's like, I have the power now. And then 2 seasons later, it's like, no, you actually didn't. You were normal all along. We're going to go back to your roots because that's when the writing was better. Peter Petrelli from Heroes got too overpowered, and then they're like, actually, now you can only take in 1 power at a time. That's not a very direct example, but they walk this stuff back all the time, and I'm like, honestly, they have something built in there, and it could be part of the lesson. Whatever lesson she needs to learn, and then she has to grow as a character without the Force, because it was a crutch that she was, thinking, apparently I might be able to use the Force, and Ahsoka was just like, yeah, I didn't know you could use the fucking Force. I was just trying to make you a dope-ass Jedi in person.
Right.
And then she just becomes a great leader without the Force, just like Bo-Katan can become a great leader without the Darksaber.
Right.
Those are good lessons.
Yeah.
You don't need the thing.
Yeah, exactly. That was that's kind of what I was hoping to see. And so it could still be going there. I'm not necessarily holding my breath for that. But
I don't think they're going to do it.
That would be what I would hope to see from this.
But I don't think they're going to... I think they're like, we've committed now. They'd be letting too many people who are excited about it down.
Yeah, as Chris said, I was
people have spoken.
Complaining to Chris about this, and he was like, yeah, but Star Wars is going to Star Wars. And this is what Star Wars do. And I was like...
He's right.
Yeah, I know. I was like, but what if they didn't, though? And he was like, I mean, they're going to. So... Yeah, so we're gonna wrap it up there for now, because we've gone over an hour and we're only halfway through the episode.
So the next part we'll talk about with the Force jump and stuff. We'll get into that, and we'll do it without discussing how mired we were by this. But it's nice to kind of close the loop on our initial frustration. I think when we come back for part 2 of our take on the finale, we'll be able to talk about everything that we were in love with the end of this, how it actually is a great... I think I said earlier it reminded me of Empire Strikes Back, but we'll get to give you our second take on it, which was brighter.
Yeah, we'll pick it up in part 2, which we'll post whenever it's done, whenever it's ready.
Insert the woo wherever you feel appropriate.
Okay. I'm just going to use that as a transitional element in between things. Remember early on when we were like, we should have some sort of transitional element in between things?
We tried to make a lightsaber noise with our mouths. And
it was just me being like...
It sounded horrible, yeah.
I'm glad we didn't use that.
I was like, this might be okay. And you were like, it's not. I'm like, yeah, you're right, it's not even close. I don't know what I was thinking. I was like, it's so bad. I was just trying so hard.
What was it that Hu Yang said last episode? I think the odds are pretty good. No, they're terrible.
No, they're terrible. They're so bad.
I think this sounds pretty good. No, it doesn't. It's terrible. Oh, I just realized I'm still recording.